Welcome to the Tech Report podcast, where we help businesses survive, thrive, and create value.
Well, welcome everybody to the Tech Report, the podcast that is all about helping businesses survive, thrive, and create value, especially in our trying environment today. I'm your host, Brad Stoller. So this is really, is this unique time for businesses. Many businesses have employees that are not wanting to come back to work. You know, the world is going towards more and more remote workers. There are some advantages to remote workers, but there's also some disadvantages. But whether you like it or not, the remote workforce is here. Just today, I heard on the news that Google has announced that all their workforce is staying home until July of 2021. Think about that for a little bit, because there's a ripple effect, and that's going to be affecting your business. Maybe it already has. Well, today's guest is Garrett Snelling. Garrett's the CEO of Circuit Saviors in Modesto, California. Garrett's company helps businesses understand the opportunities as well as how to keep their company's data secure with all the increased risks that are out there. So Garrett, welcome to the Tech Report.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Garrett, you've been helping business owners with their technology in the greater Modesto, California area now for quite some time. And I love to hear people's stories and how they ended up doing what they do today. And I know our listeners love to hear that too. So what led you to become an expert in managing network services for businesses? Tell us your story.
Yeah, so I started out of college in about 2011. Was getting my bachelor's in computer information systems and just kind of helping people here and there, friends and family, word of mouth, people that just had a little computer problems here and there. Started getting into doing some support for businesses, and I started seeing some of the major issues that businesses that don't have anyone doing IT for them encounter. You know, they think that something is set up to back up their servers, and there's nothing. They think that they have antivirus. They don't.
It's a hot mess, isn't it?
Yeah, they think their network is protected because they have a little router that does nothing.
Yep, exactly.
So I just started getting more interested in that. I got Ubiquity certification for wireless as I was getting into more wireless networking, and just kind of constantly learning about the current state of attacks and way to protect networks. And you know, it's an always developing field, so you can never just be like, I'm an expert now, I'm done learning.
Oh, most definitely. It's changing by the minute here in this industry. So it sounds like you've always had a little bit of a passion, I guess, if you will, to I heard that you want to learn as much as you can about this, but also you're really into helping others, from what I gather. Is that right?
Yeah. If I can do something to prevent a catastrophe, something small that can prevent something big from happening, those are the things that make me the happiest.
Good. I'm sure your customers, I know your customers appreciate it. So good story. So, I was doing a little research, and I found that your clients, they really do seem to like what you do. And I know one in particular mentioned that you take care of all of their technology needs, including their phone systems. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Circuit Saviors, and how your system can really help businesses, especially right now where, this world is strange with this pandemic going on. So how are you helping people with that right now?
Yeah, so our goal is to basically be part of your company. We like to think of ourselves as a member on your team and not just like some vendor that you're outsourcing to. We're helping a lot of our clients by providing them the tools to make sure that when they move, they can move safely. We have remote screen sharing tools, so if they need to access their computers at work from home, they can secure VPNs, and then voice over IP phone systems, which are internet-based phones. So you plug it into the internet anywhere, and it's as if you're in the office. Those are the types of tools that businesses can use to, if they realize they need to close tomorrow, they can flip a switch and they can go remote.
So it sounds like what you're doing with, especially like the phone systems, when you said you can plug it at anywhere you have an internet connection,
Hmm.
that's kind of a big deal. If the governor shuts it down in your state, if the
Hmm.
mayor shuts down, and you're in California, so and the Modesto, if they say everybody you're done, we got to lock down. So
Yeah.
you actually okay, so the business in Modesto might be affected, but what about all those companies that do business elsewhere? They still have to stay up and running, don't they?
Right.
Well, that's cool. So I'm glad that to hear that you're doing things to help businesses out, because right now it's a scary world out there, but business
Hmm.
has to go on. So
Yeah.
glad to hear that. So I know that some businesses really are thriving right now, and others really have shut down. I mean, some of them permanently already. So
Hmm.
there doesn't really seem to be much of an in-between area right now. But for those businesses that are thriving, what are some key areas they really need to be aware of when it comes to their technology systems?
So I think one thing to be really aware of is when everything was shutting down and switching to remote back in February and March, there was one industry that did not take a break, and that is your malicious actors. Um,
That's for sure. I've got
their
guys myself
activity,
trying to get me.
yeah, their activity jumped because they saw that as a massive opportunity, because they know that businesses were scrambling to implement solutions they didn't have, and people were implementing things incorrectly. Also, when you separate out your workforce, you don't have the same kind of like herd immunity when it comes to like spam and phishing and emails and stuff. Because if you get an suspicious email from Joe in the cubicle next door, you can be like, "Did you send that to me?"
Exactly.
Whereas if he's not in the office, you're less likely to make the effort to go and check that. So that's one thing we're trying to make people aware of, is that stuff did not take a break. Um, the big thing is making sure that you have systems in place to make sure that if you're working remote, that those devices are protected. Once those devices, if you're protecting your network with a firewall, for example, when those devices go home, they're not being protected by that firewall anymore. So you have
Exactly.
to think about a different approach security wise, and then having policies and procedures in place with your staff, especially if any of those staff handle like financial transfers or anything like that. There have been in recent months large wire transfers that someone thought the CEO was telling them to do. And once that money's gone out the door, it's gone. You do not get that back.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I got hit with one of those a few months back, where I
Mm-hmm.
supposedly got an email from the CEO, and I didn't really notice that the email address looked a little funny, but I didn't notice that
Mm-hmm.
till later. But yeah, it's out there and it's rampant, so you got to be very careful today. So
Yeah.
great. So what about the businesses that maybe they haven't shut the doors yet? Okay, but they're really struggling right now just to hang in there. There's some vulnerabilities there as well, but what are some areas that a great technology program can actually help them get through this pandemic and actually
Mm-hmm.
come out stronger?
Yeah. So I've seen some really inventive solutions people have come up with to be able to keep operating the business remotely. But I mean, one thing that the entire world discovered in February that they weren't already aware of is, platforms like Zoom, where you can do a lot of stuff pseudo face to face, and you don't actually have to meet with clients. And I think a strength with that is for local businesses, if that's something that, if your business is able to operate that way, it actually expands your reach, because now you're not limited to your locale. You can talk to people on the East Coast and help them with stuff that way. So utilizing those tools is very helpful. We also found a free tool someone developed specifically for companies that have waiting rooms, called Curb Queue. It's an entirely free website that you can go and create an account, and people can actually, you put a poster on your window when they come up in their car. They go to the website, they put in the code, they tell you that they're here. It sends a message to you. You You can text them through the website, lets them know where they are in the waiting queue and everything. Tell them to come on in. It's a really neat system that
Awesome.
someone developed just to help people out with this type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And and actually, this podcast is an example of what you just said, because we're using Zoom.
Yeah.
You're in California, and I'm on the Eastern Standard Time. I'm out in Pennsylvania, and not quite to the coast, but pretty close. And it's just like we're just next door. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and for those businesses that really are just kind of, really just kind of trying to hang in there. The advice, I guess, from what I'm hearing is hang in there. Help's on its way, but sometimes technology can help, and you've got some ideas I think that can really it could actually save some businesses. Some of those ideas if they implement them, and they don't have to cost bloody fortune sometimes. So that's good stuff. So I know the last thing on many business owners and the managers' minds right now is either taking the time to review their current IT systems, or they're worried about the increasing the cost of anything right now. So we get it. So what do you recommend to listeners? Should they be increasing their IT budgets to take advantage of new and more efficient systems? Or should they just kind of ride out the storm and hope, which is never a good strategy, but hope nothing bad happens? What is your take on that? What should people be doing?
Yeah, we never recommend hope as a security strategy.
It's not a good strategy.
It inevitably will fail.
Yeah.
The real answer is it does depend. It depends on where you are now going into this. And we don't want people to have to close their company because they invested in IT.
Right.
That being said, when I talk to people about spending, whether it's replacing that computer or hiring us for services, we like to frame it in this way. You're spending money one way or the other. You're just deciding which way. So you can spend money directly by replacing that computer or paying for that service, or you're just going to spend it indirectly by letting your employees work inefficiently or have downtime because that computer that you didn't replace died. And so now you're paying your employee to work and your employee can't do anything. Or you're losing money because your employee can't work. So there's spending going on, whether it's directly or indirectly is kind of up to you. We just had a client we started with just about a couple months ago, and about 3 weeks into us taking care of everything for them, their server failed. And part of our services were making sure that if that server fails, we can get them back up and running in minutes. And that's exactly what we did. So instead of it being a terrible day for us and them because they're calling us to scramble to fix it, I flipped the switch and went downstairs and had a cup of coffee.
Now that's the way it should work right there.
Yeah.
So, but that's good to know, because a lot of people are trying to, they don't want to spend the money. So if it's tight now, you're right. There's inefficiencies everywhere. And it sounds like part of what you do is get rid of the inefficiencies. People can become more productive and take some of that money you're spending on the unproductive things anyhow, get your systems better now. And by the time we're done with this pandemic, which hopefully that's not too long, you actually come out stronger, not weaker. Did I say that okay?
And it's also easier to replace stuff when there's not a lot of work going on.
Yeah, exactly. So good point. So, well, Garrett, I know we've covered quite a bit so far, and I know we could go on and on and on, because I know you've got a lot to talk about, but they're going to kick us off the air at some point. What's one big thing that we really haven't talked about yet when it comes to business technology that you feel is really critical that business owners know about right now?
I think one thing that is often overlooked is training your employees to spot malicious or phishing emails, kind of like what we briefly touched on it earlier.
Yeah, good point. That's a good one.
But looking at the different areas that attacks can happen, IT guys like myself, we like to look at the technical side of things. We like to look at the firewall and the antivirus and different, like how are things getting in from the outside. But your employees are actually your first line of defense, because if that employee doesn't know not to click on that link, not to give that malicious actor their credentials,
right?
If once that's done, they're inside your network. So that's actually one of the most critical pieces, is making sure that your employees know how to spot a fake email or malicious email, and they can stop it before it starts.
Exactly. And I'm going to ask you this question. I know you know the answer, but I want everybody to hear this. So how many employees does it take for a cyber hacker to get into your system?
Just one.
That's what I thought. So you've got 100 employees. All it takes is one little mistake and they're in there, aren't they? Next thing you know, your stuff's been either sold, or you're going to get that little notice about they want about 100,000 Bitcoin or something like that. So it happens, and it's been happening, and it's been shooting up a lot. I know that. So
yeah.
Well, cool. So, well, let's talk a little bit about now your company now. First of all, where's your service area? And secondly, I know people are more than likely going to have some questions about some of the things we talked about here today. So then tell us how they can reach you. So first of all, what all do you guys do, and where do you service?
So we are what's called a managed service provider. What that means in techno jargon is we are on your team. So we come into your business, we look at what you have for your technology, we look at what you need, we customize a service plan to make sure that everything is taken care of. So you don't have to go out and try to find the right computer to replace, or worry about, is my antivirus set up, is my firewall set up. We just do everything. We're an outsourced IT department. The range we cover, we typically operate physically within 20-25 miles from Modesto. We will go further if necessary, and with remote tools we can often do. We have clients that have offices on the East Coast. Right. So there's not, as long as it's in the US, we can take care of you.
Sounds good. So now, how do people get in touch with you when they have some questions after they watch this?
If you have any questions, you can email me directly at Garrett@circuitsaviors.com, and you can also call our office at 209-215-4200, and you can ask for me directly.
Sounds terrific. So, well, once again, a special thanks to Garrett Snelling of Circuit Saviors for taking the time out of his busy schedule today to help us get a better perspective on growing your business by partnering with technology. So, Garrett, thanks again for being with us here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.